Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happens when Liam Neeson, the man who's played heroes and vigilantes, walks into Loose Women to talk about a law forcing retirees to volunteer? You get one of the most unexpected and emotional debates daytime TV has ever seen. The studio started warm and chatty. Denise Welch, lively as ever, joked about how her husband would finally have a reason to leave the sofa if such a law passed. The audience laughed, until Liam leaned forward, that calm Irish voice cutting through the chatter. "So we'd make it illegal for seniors to rest?" he asked quietly. The laughter faded fast. At first, it was polite disagreement. Denise saw it as civic pride. Liam saw it as moral coercion. But then Denise pressed harder, accusing him of babying retirees and saying that everyone should pull their weight. Liam's eyes hardened. "My mother volunteered for 40 years, he said. "The moment it becomes mandatory, it stops being noble." From there, the air changed. The audience shifted in their seats, sensing something real unfolding. It wasn't just about volunteering anymore. It was about freedom, dignity, and what society owes its elders. What happened next? You wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it yourself.
The cameras rolled, lights glowed warmly, and the signature Loose Women theme music faded into polite applause as Liam Neeson took his seat beside Denise Welch. He was in his usual understated style, dark blazer, open collar, that calm, focused demeanor that made the audience lean in before he even spoke. Denise, meanwhile, was all energy and sparkle, smiling wide as she greeted him. "Liam Neeson, ladies and gentlemen," she said, raising her arms to the crowd. The audience clapped enthusiastically. "Now, Liam, you're here to talk about something that's been dividing opinions all week. A proposed bill suggesting retirees should do at least 10 hours of volunteer work a month. You've got strong feelings, I hear." He smiled faintly. "I think strong feelings might be putting it lightly. I just believe retirement isn't something people need to justify. They've already given their time, their lives, their effort. If they want to volunteer, wonderful. But to make it mandatory?" He shook his head slightly. "That's not service. That's punishment, dressed as virtue." The studio hummed. Denise leaned forward, the corners of her mouth curving into that mischievous grin viewers knew so well. "Oh, come on, Liam. Don't you think a bit of structure would do some good? Keeps people active, gives them purpose." He met her gaze, unflinching. "Purpose isn't something you assign. It's something you choose." That line drew murmurs from the audience. A few heads nodded, others tilted skeptically. Kay Adams, the moderator, tried to lighten the mood. She said with a laugh, but Denise was already loading her next point. "Look," Denise said, gesturing animatedly, "the country's struggling. We've got short-staffed hospitals, understaffed food banks, lonely elderly people. If we can encourage older folks to contribute a bit, what's wrong with that?" His jaw tightened just slightly. "Encourage? Fine. But to force them? That's not encouragement, it's control. It's saying, you don't get to rest until we're done with you." The audience gasped softly. You could feel the temperature rise. Denise crossed her legs and tilted her head. "I think you're dramatizing it, darling," she said with a half smile. But Liam was loading his next point. "Look," he said animatedly, "the country's struggling. We've got short-staffed hospitals, understaffed food banks, lonely elderly people. If we can encourage older folks to contribute a bit, what's wrong with that?" Liam's jaw tightened just slightly. "Encourage? Fine. But to force them, that's not encouragement, it's control. It's saying you don't get to rest until we're done with you. The audience gasped softly. You could feel the temperature rise. Denise crossed her legs and tilted her head. "I think you're dramatizing it, darling," she said with a half-smile. But Liam was loading his next point. "Look," he said, until his knees gave out. "My mother volunteered at church every Sunday until she couldn't stand. She didn't do it for credit or law. She did it out of love. The second you tell her she has to, you take away the meaning." The audience broke into soft applause. Denise tried to keep her composure, but you could see the flicker of irritation. "So what, we just let people sit around feeling useless? That's not compassion, Liam. That's neglect." He looked at her, almost pained. "No, Denise, it's respect." The air went still. Even the hosts exchanged uncertain glances. It was still early in the segment, but already everyone could sense this debate was becoming more personal than political. The spark had officially been lit.
By the time the second segment began, the energy on Loose Women had shifted. The usual laughter and banter had thinned out, replaced by the charged buzz of two people standing on opposite sides of a moral line. Denise adjusted her seat, leaning in, her voice taking on a sharper, more deliberate tone. "Liam, I love that you respect your parents' generation, truly, but don't you think you're being a bit idealistic?" she said, gesturing toward him with a pen in hand. "We're not talking about enslaving retirees. We're talking about getting people involved in their communities. Loneliness, depression, lack of purpose, these are real issues. Volunteering could help them." Liam gave a slow nod, as if weighing her words. "I understand that, Denise, I really do. But when the government turns helping into obligation, it's no longer kindness, it's policy, and policy rarely carries compassion." That landed like a stone in water. The audience murmured, some clapping softly in support. Denise, though, wasn't backing down. "You act like asking seniors to contribute is cruelty," she fired back. "They benefit from the system too, Liam. Free health care, pensions, safety nets, all paid for by taxpayers. Isn't it fair to ask for something in return?" Liam's calm started to strain at the edges. "They already gave something in return," he said, his voice deepening. "Decades of labor, taxes, and sacrifice. They built the very system you're talking about." The audience reacted, half applause, half tension. Kay tried to interject, "Let's keep this friendly," but the train was already moving too fast. Denise's tone hardened. "I think you're emotional about this because of your parents, and that's fine. But policy isn't about one family. It's about the greater good. Sometimes the greater good means compromise." Liam blinked slowly, clearly reining himself in. "You think compassion is a compromise?" he asked quietly. "I think it's a responsibility, and it starts by not treating people like numbers in a budget." Denise straightened up, her voice rising. "Nobody's treating anyone like a number. You're twisting this into something dramatic when it's simple. If we all gave a little, the country would be better off." The Irish actor's expression softened for just a moment before turning somber. "You sound like every politician who's forgotten what the word enough means." The crowd gasped. Even Kay couldn't hide her raised brows. Denise exhaled sharply, trying to mask her irritation with a tight smile. "Well, I suppose it's easy to say that when you're a Hollywood millionaire, Liam. You don't exactly know what it's like to live on a pension." That line cut deep. A few audience members groaned at the jab. Liam's shoulders squared. "I grew up in Ballymena. I watched my father take on extra shifts to pay bills. Fame didn't erase that. It just gave me a louder voice to say what he never could." A hush fell. Denise glanced at Kay, who was now clearly trying to find a break to pivot topics, but the audience was too invested. Liam continued, his tone steady but full of conviction.
We say we care about seniors, but then we talk about managing them like they're a workforce. Maybe it's time we start caring about their peace of mind more than their productivity." The audience burst into applause. Denise smiled tightly, but didn't hide her frustration. "So your solution is what then? Let them all sit around and wait for life to end? You talk about peace, but that sounds a lot like giving up on people." Liam leaned in slightly, his gaze steady and piercing. "No, Denise, it's about giving them something you seem to have forgotten: choice." That line drew a mix of gasps and applause echoing through the studio. You could see the sparks had turned to fire. What had begun as a friendly debate was now a full-on ideological clash, and neither was planning to give an inch.
The studio lights seemed brighter as the next segment began, though maybe it was just the tension radiating between Liam Neeson and Denise Welch. The air felt heavy, the kind of silence that comes before either a breakthrough or an explosion. Kay Adams, trying to reset the tone, smiled nervously. "All right, this topic struck a chord. Denise, Liam, let's try to explore the heart of it. Why do you each feel so strongly?" Denise went first. Her voice softened, but her words carried that iron edge. "Look, I grew up working class. My parents didn't have much. My mom volunteered at the church pantry long before it was fashionable. It gave her life purpose. I think people need that, especially as they get older. Volunteering isn't control, it's connection." The audience clapped lightly. Denise smiled, encouraged. "I just think if we made it expected, even required, more people would find that same purpose. Some folks don't realize how much they still have to give." Liam nodded, listening, but there was something in his eyes, a storm behind calm water. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and measured, almost too gentle. "I understand that, Denise. I really do. My mother was the same way. She used to visit neighbors who lived alone, even after her arthritis made walking painful. She'd bring them soup, sit for a bit, just talk." The audience quieted. You could hear the hum of the lights. "But one winter," Liam continued, "her feet slipped on the ice while carrying groceries for a widow down the street, broke her wrist, and I remember her saying to me later, 'I don't mind doing it, son, but if they ever made me do it, it wouldn't feel right.'" Denise blinked, caught off guard. Liam's voice grew steadier now, thick with quiet emotion. "You see, my mom didn't need someone to tell her how to matter. She just did. And that's the difference I'm talking about. The heart's not the same when the hand is forced." A ripple of applause swept through the audience, long and genuine. Some of the hosts nodded, visibly moved. Denise crossed her arms, defensive, but shaken. "Liam, nobody's talking about forcing your mother," she said, her voice less combative now. "It's about structure, encouragement through accountability." "Accountability to whom? The government? The same government that forgets to check in on these seniors when they're sick or alone." His tone hardened slightly. "We have this terrible habit of under-supporting people and then blaming them for needing rest." The audience murmured again. Someone shouted, "That's right," from the back, earning laughter. Denise leaned forward, her tone rising again. "But don't you think a lot of retirees actually want to help but don't know how? If there's a system that pairs them with schools, hospitals, communities, it gives them direction." "Direction," Liam repeated, almost to himself. Then he looked at her squarely. "Denise, when I was filming in Belfast a few years ago, I met a man in his 70s, Vietnam veteran, quiet, proud. He told me, 'I gave my country my youth. Now I just want to enjoy what's left of my peace.' He didn't need direction. He needed rest. And we don't seem to know the difference anymore." A soft awe rolled through the crowd. Denise frowned but didn't speak. Liam's voice softened again, carrying the kind of emotion that silences even cynics. I'm not saying volunteering's bad. I'm saying when we make it a duty, we take something sacred and turn it into a checkbox. There's beauty in service, but only when it's chosen. My fear is that we'll forget that, and one day kindness will feel like another law. The studio fell utterly still. Even the co-hosts stopped moving. Denise finally exhaled, looking at him, not with anger this time, but thoughtfulness. I can see your point, she said quietly. But the system is breaking. People are lonely, communities are stretched thin. Maybe what we're really arguing about isn't volunteering, it's responsibility. Whose job it is to care. He nodded, and for the first time there was a brief flicker of shared understanding. Yes, he said, and I think we've forgotten that compassion isn't supposed to be a job. It's supposed to be who we are. The audience broke into applause again, louder this time, longer. Even Kay smiled in relief. That's beautifully put. Compassion as who we are. But before the air could cool, Denise leaned forward again, her expression soft, but still unyielding. You know, Liam, sometimes I wonder if your version of compassion is a luxury. Because for most people, it's not about ideals, it's about survival. Maybe volunteering gives people a reason to keep going. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. That's fair, but let's not confuse survival with meaning. My point is, let them choose that reason. Don't assign it. Applause swelled again, this time mixed with a few cheers. Denise smiled faintly, conceding nothing, but her voice trembled just slightly when she said, You always have a way with words, don't you? He smiled back, his tone gentle but resolute. Only when they come from a place that still believes people deserve to decide how they live. And with that, the temperature in the room changed again. Not explosive this time, but heavy with emotion. The debate wasn't just about retirees anymore. It was about human dignity, autonomy, and the fine line between helping people and controlling them. The flashpoint had come and gone, but everyone watching could tell it wasn't over yet. Something deeper was still burning beneath the surface. The studio felt like it was holding its breath. Denise's last line, maybe volunteering gives survival a bit of meaning, hung in the air, sharp but sincere. Liam sat back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in anger but in reflection. He finally leaned forward, hands clasped. Meaning is a powerful thing, he said, but it can't be given through obligation. That's the part we seem to miss in this country. We think structure can replace spirit. Denise tilted her head, brow furrowed. And yet without structure, spirit fades. You've seen it, Liam. Look around. Whole neighborhoods don't speak to each other anymore. The days of community naturally forming are gone. Maybe we do need something formal to bring it back. The audience clapped softly, sensing the weight of what was coming. Liam gave a small, weary smile. I understand that longing, he said. But when you make something sacred into a system, you risk killing the very heart of it. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. I've seen that happen before, when people try to legislate morality. It always starts with good intentions. But soon, you've got older people being told they're not doing enough, that their rest is laziness, that their peace is selfish. His voice rose slightly now, no longer the calm diplomat, but the man who lived enough to be tired of polite mistakes. We already guilt the young into overworking themselves. Are we now planning to guilt the old into saving us too? The audience murmured loudly. Denise straightened. That's not fair, she shot back. Nobody's talking about guilt. We're talking about engagement. You keep acting like this is punishment. It's about purpose. It's about keeping people connected, healthy, and useful." Liam's tone hardened. "Useful?" he repeated, the word like a quiet strike. "So a person's worth depends on their usefulness now?" Denise blinked, realizing the impact of her phrasing. "I didn't mean it like that." "No, but that's what it becomes, doesn't it? That's the danger. You call it service, but it sounds an awful lot like measuring a life." Kay interjected, sensing the heat. "All right, let's take a breath." But neither of them did. Denise turned toward Liam, her voice emotional now. "You're twisting it. You make it sound sinister when it's not. I've seen people come alive because they were asked to give back. I've seen men who'd lost their wives find reason to get up in the morning again because they were volunteering. Don't you dare tell me it's control when it's hope." Liam met her intensity, his own voice breaking through, raw and unfiltered. "And I've seen men who've worked every day of their lives die with guilt because they thought rest was wrong. My father was one of them. He couldn't sit still in retirement, felt useless, like he was letting the world down. He didn't live long enough to realize he'd earned his peace." The room went completely still. Denise's lips parted, but no words came out. Even the camera operators were shaken. Liam's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "We've forgotten how to let people stop proving themselves. That's what I'm fighting for. Not laziness, dignity." For a moment, Denise said nothing. Then, quietly, she replied, "And I'm fighting for belonging, because too many people are invisible." It wasn't anger now. It was heartbreak, two truths colliding. Liam nodded slowly. "Maybe we're both right," he said. "But forcing compassion kills its soul. You can't make people care through law. You can only remind them how." The crowd erupted in applause, standing this time. Even Denise, after a long pause, joined in, eyes glistening but resolute. Kay finally spoke, her voice soft. "That was one of the most powerful exchanges we've had on this show." And she was right. It wasn't just a clash of opinions anymore. It was a confrontation between two visions of what it means to be human. As the camera slowly panned out, Liam looked down for a moment, thoughtful, then met Denise's gaze again. There was no triumph in his eyes, only empathy. "Maybe," he said, "the answer isn't making it mandatory. Maybe it's making it easier for people to want to help." Denise nodded faintly, and for once the table felt less like a battlefield and more like a truce. The crowd clapped again, softer this time, but deeper, fuller. The kind of applause that doesn't celebrate victory, but understanding. And as the show cut to commercial, the conversation hung in the air, unfinished but unforgettable. When the cameras returned after the break, something had shifted. The tension from before wasn't gone. It had simply deepened into something more reflective. The audience was quieter now, as if they all knew they'd just witnessed something that went beyond television debate. Kay Adams looked around the panel. "We've heard powerful perspectives today," she said gently. "Before we wrap up, I'd like to give both of you a final word. What should people take away from this?" Denise spoke first. Her tone was steady, but softer than before. "I'll admit, Liam's made me think," she said. "I came into this conversation wanting structure, wanting to fix the loneliness and disconnection I see everywhere. But I suppose you can't regulate heart. Maybe it's about making the invitation so warm that people want to say yes instead of forcing them to." The audience nodded, several people clapping quietly. Liam smiled faintly, appreciative but still firm. "That's a good way to put it," he said. "I just believe retirement shouldn't feel like another assignment. People spend their lives giving to their jobs, their families, their country. At some point, they've earned the right to live without proving they're still valuable." Denise looked at him, eyes thoughtful. "But what if they want to prove it?" she asked softly. He gave a small, knowing laugh. "Then we cheer them on, but we don't make it a rule." Kay smiled at both of them. "It sounds like what we really need," she said, "is a society that values choice and community equally." Liam nodded. "Exactly. Compassion should be encouraged, not assigned. When people choose to give back, that's when it truly means something." The applause swelled again, the kind that came not from excitement, but from respect. As the camera zoomed in, Denise reached across the table and touched Liam's arm. "You've got me thinking differently about this," she admitted. "Maybe the real answer isn't in laws or programs, it's in how we treat people long before they retire." Liam's eyes softened. "That's it. You can't fix the end of a life by ignoring the middle." The room went quiet again, and for a moment even the hosts seemed unsure how to move on. There was something rare in the air, a mix of humility and truth, the kind that doesn't show up in sound bites. Kay finally looked into the camera. "This debate started with a question. Should volunteer work be mandatory for retirees? I think what we've learned is that maybe what people really want isn't direction, but dignity." The audience rose to their feet, clapping louder now. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. Liam and Denise exchanged a look. No victory, no defeat, just understanding. Two people who had finally seen the humanity behind their arguments. As the outro music swelled, Liam leaned toward Denise and said something off-mic that made her laugh, breaking the heaviness for the first time all hour. It was the perfect ending note. Not triumph, not tension, but tenderness. And when the credits rolled, it wasn't just another fiery episode of Loose Women. It felt like a mirror held up to everyone watching, quietly asking, when was the last time you chose kindness just because you could? If you liked this powerful exchange, subscribe for more emotional showdowns, heartfelt debates, and moments that remind us why compassion still matters. Tell us below, should giving back ever be mandatory, or is it something that only counts when it comes from the heart?